Is it possible to function on a gig with no switches, no switching? And I don't mean like, kind of an old school plug straight into the amp. Just use your volume control and your pickup controls and all the controls on your guitar. I love that. That's a great method. But what about if you need the delays and different amp sounds and some channel switching and effects and yada, 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 all of that stuff? The gig requires you to go through a bunch of different tones, but could you function on that gig without using any sort of switching? Pedal board switches, yeah, whatever. It is possible, and I've done it before, and in the right parameters, it works incredibly well. What's up, friend? My name is Matthew Dale. I'm here to help you play better, sound great, and understand more. And I've been doing a little bit of a mini-series lately where I've been going through what I would call gig-ready presets, or what to do to get your presets ready for the gig. Just getting the tones is half the battle. We also need to be able to use those tones to function in our live performances. We talked about the FM3, so just using 3 switches in the most efficient ways to do that. We introduced external controllers in the FM3 as well. And then we talked about 9 switches at a time, so something like the FM9, which I love, Axe-Fx 3 with an FC6 controller. And now I'm going to be on my Axe-Fx today. This applies to all of our other units as well. But I'm specifically using the Axe-Fx just for the overall form factor of it. It's a rack mount. So it's going to be probably, it's not going to be at our feet. It's going to be somewhere else, right? Usually in my gigging and touring experience, it's over on the side of the stage. Sometimes I might use a really long XLR cable to do a fast link connection over to my FC6 and control things that way. But if you're on if this is like an in-ear gig, it's a clicked out gig, you've got not necessarily tracks that you perform to, but you have a tempo, a click going, you might have a guide track, so chorus, 2, 3, 4. This is really big in the worship community. It's also really big in like the pop performance community because there's a lot of moving parts. There's usually people dancing. There's coordination of what needs to happen on a stage. And in my experience, where I would utilize this would be a Trans-Siberian Orchestra tribute show that I was a part of, a touring production that I was a part of for 5 years. And that's a very physical performance, meaning when I was playing the lead guitar parts for this, I'm everywhere on the stage. I don't want to just rush back to my pedal board or my FC6 controller somewhere and like hit stuff and then go back and keep going and play some more and yada yada. So when you're doing something like that, and it's the same arrangement night after night, there's utility in front-loading your presets, taking the time to just program your effect switching and have the computer and the devices take care of it for you. Luxury, easy mode, so to speak. But that means you're also taking all of that time that you would be hitting a switch, and you are putting that to the front end of your performance. So you have to think about that. If you're not on a click, don't do this, because it's never really going to be synced in a consistent manner. You can really only excel at doing this sort of thing when using a click and going along with a track and doing the same performance over and over again. Before we get started, I just want to mention real quick, if you do like the tones that I have cultivated in this video, the preset that I'm going to be using today is Achilles. It's out of my premium preset pack. So if you want to check that out, I'll link to those in the description box below. I also have a couple of free gifts for you if you want to check it out. One is my block library. A lot of my favorite tones you can download for yourself for free at matthewdale.com/blocks. And I just had a comment on my video the other day where someone, an old sort of free gift that I had called my Fractal Amps and Cabs guide. Someone just commented the other day, hated my Fractal. I was going to return it, and I downloaded your Amps and Cabs guide. And it's helped me immensely to finally get along with the amplifiers and the cabinets and get really good feeling tone out of the unit. So I thought that was worth a mention if you want to check that out as well. It's still really helpful. It's a little bit older. This actually might be a good opportunity for me to update it and put some new amps and some new cabs in there. But obviously there's still some utility there. So if you want to check that out for yourself as well, it's my Fractal Amps and Cabs guide. All right, so let's go ahead and dive into Studio One here where I do this stuff. Different day of filming, so I look different, obviously. But I'm a Studio One user. You can do this stuff in any other DAW that you want to do. Pro Tools isn't very widely used live. Probably the best live DAW would be Ableton. So you can do this stuff probably a little bit easier in Ableton. I'm a Studio One user. It's been working well for me, so I'm going to do it in Studio One. Your mileage may vary, but the overall concept of this is going to look the same. So I'm going to dive into my session here and talk about this process of getting everything front-loaded, all of your switching front-loaded here. And I just have a little like Latin groove that I'm going to do. I've got a couple different passes, and I'm going to do some different automation on program or preset switching, scenes, an effect, and using an external controller to be basically like a virtual or a digital roadie of sorts that can move things in real time, which is really handy for some specialty effects that we'll talk about. So first things first, we need to bring something into the session, to the tracks, to control our Axe effects. We need to show the tracks that there is an Axe effects present and we're trying to control it. So over here in my instrument dropdown, you can see I have external instruments, and here's the Fractal. If I go up into my settings here, preferences, external devices, and down here I've got Fractal, and it's right now sourcing from the Axe effects 3, and sending and receiving from, I'm sending MIDI clock, so that's the tempo, the BPM stuff. We're going to be sending that. That's important. I've got a couple of other things flicked here, but that's really the most important stuff. I don't really know much about the MIDI clock start. That might be like transport controls. If there's something specific mapped, there's really not anything to do with the Axe effects. It's just sort of like a general thing. And send MIDI timecode. You can actually, I should back up and say, you can program the transport controls on the Axe effects. That's possible. It's just through a different methodology. So the main thing is send MIDI clock. That's going to send your BPM tempo. I'm going to do a rhythmic delay, and having a rhythmic delay already synced to the tempo without having to do a tap is great. So this is one of the things that I did want to show. One thing real quick, I'm going to save you a bunch of time because I spent a bunch of time sifting through and trying to figure this out and do all this. It can be very frustrating. The Axe effects 3 and the FM9 are, when you're using MIDI via USB, it's only a one-way street. You can only send information into the Axe effects. You cannot have the Axe effects send MIDI information into the computer through USB. You can do that with MIDI cables and MIDI to USB, which I've done before, if I want to control like the transport controls or that sort of thing. However, if you're just doing a USB connection, it's only one way. The computer is controlling your Axe effects, and that's it. The FM3 is not a MIDI over USB device. So if you're trying to do this on the FM3, it's still possible. You just need to get a MIDI to USB cable. That's the way you would do it. And then you can also do the same things. You can control the computer from the FM3 because you can send and you can receive control from the computer as well. So I wanted to get that out there because it took me a while to figure that out. Sifting through the manual and trying to understand everything that it meant and yada, 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 yada. So I'm on channel 1. That's fine. We're just going to hit OK here and get out of this menu. When you set it up in your DAW and the way it looks in Studio One, it's over here in my external instruments. I'm going to bring this down like a track, just like a track of audio or a digital instrument, really a track of MIDI, I guess I should say, just like a digital instrument. And here we can see the controllers that I have set up. Here's the list of things that I can control. It's just different CC numbers. These are not Axe effects specific. These are just MIDI specific, really, and I've customized them and named them because one of the nice things about the Axe effects and the Fractal products is that you can go in. Let me show you here. Here's Axe Edit. you can go in and in the setup menu under MIDI/remote, you can actually map all of the parameters to any CC that you want, right? So over here, delay 2 that I'm going to use in our preset. Delay 2 is set to CC15, and my external 2 control is mapped to CC3, and my mapping for, if you go into other, my mapping for scenes is CC2. You can customize all this stuff, which I think is great. Some products like the Line 6, the Helix family, the HX Stomp, it's kind of locked in, and you have less flexibility there, so it's nice that Fractal gave us this flexibility. However, now there's also another layer of keeping track of everything. So over here in the DAW, I'm very clearly organized. Here's, CC0, bank select, that's kind of a pretty standardized thing, but CC number 2, I labeled scenes. CC number 3, I labeled external control. If I go down here, CC 15 is going to be my delay control. So I labeled all of these things so I know what I'm controlling when I do the automation. Okay, now let's go into this. I've got a little click here, a little count off, and then the track is in. So right at this count off, I am going to put in a event, and I'm going to automate this event. I'm going to put automation on this event. First things what we're going to do that I would probably do if I'm doing this with a bunch of songs is go to my different preset for that song. So we want to call that up. Now on my event here, here's my automation window down here. I don't have any control of these thus far. I need to add them with this little control over here. It's the smallest thing to find. It would be nice if they just clearly labeled, add automation in big, bold things, but they don't do that. So I want program change. That's going to be to change the presets. Since MIDI is only 0 to 127, I can't access. This is preset 482. I can't just type in 482. I have to select the bank, and then we can select the right preset. I want to automate scenes. I want to automate my delay bypass and external 2. So I want to automate all these things, and I'm going to add them in. And now we can see some of the parameters are already kind of called up just because they're communicating with one another. The computer is sort of seeing where I'm at right now. And you can see if I just shorten this up and I go into program change, I'm actually already on, or it's already reading, I guess it should say. It's already reading at this number. So program change 98 and bank select, if we look at this. I'm also adding a little blip of, if I move my cursor, you can see, I'm adding that little automation event so it actually triggers this again. This is going to be on bank 3, and it's looking like the scene that I have selected at the moment is scene 6, because I have scene 7, or, well, this is saying it's value, the scene CC value of number 6, which, because scenes, we have 8 scenes on our Fractal, the MIDI values are 0 to 7 for scenes 1 through 8, and then they repeat. So it's actually already recognizing what preset, what bank, and what scene I have selected, but I'm going to further automate this stuff. So just for right now, I'm going to just automate this. I'm going to go back to 0. I'm going to right-click this and put it back to 0, which is going to call up scene 1. And when I call this in, now everything sort of calls in. If I just look at the delay doesn't have any automation on it. And same thing with external 2. They're just reading an initial CC value of 0. This is probably getting a little bit complicated and is a little bit complicated, but you'll see how it can make your life a little bit easier after you sift through all of this. So bear with me just for a second. Let me show you in real time what's happening. I'm going to go back here, and I'm going to reselect just a different preset here. And now, watch what happens. I'm going to hit play on this, and there's Achilles, and now let me stop you. There's Achilles. It calls everything up, and it also updated my BPM. Because I'm sending MIDI clock, it's already updating my BPM. This is not the saved tempo on Achilles. I think that's, well, something else. So it's already calling up all of my settings. Bam, it's right there. That's what we want. I'm going to further alter this and control this in a couple different ways. I'm also not going to go back, because now every time I do this, it's also going to recall like it's going to reactivate go to scene or go to preset 482. Let's move on. Scene changes. So right away, I'm using these individual events to do all of my switching. These are all of my little switch presses here. I'm going to change the color of this to, I don't know, this purple or something. And I'm going to color code it because I'm going to copy and paste these different commands. So this one, I want this purple to be my scene changes. I'm going to grab my little paint tool, and I'm going to go here and add a little dot of automation. And now I'm going to change what scene I'm going to. This is going to be scene now. I want to go to my wide clean, which I believe is, I don't know, I'm guessing 6. I think it's scene 7. Scene 7, wide clean. Okay, so I want that to be my wide clean. I want this, big, lush, chorusy sort of thing happening. That's going to be automated right there. At this F major 7, let me go ahead and copy this real quick. And copy. Over at this F major 7, I'm going to add in this. I want to go back to my clean scene. So I'm just going to highlight this. I'm going to go back to 0, clean. And I'm going to do some rhythmic delay stuff there. And good, that's 0. Now we're going to go back over to our next pass. This is going to be clean lead. And paste. Let me double check my clean lead, which is scene 6. So that's going to be CC value of number 5. A little mental math that you got to do here. And then I want my lead right over here. Paste this. Once you kind of get this down, it gets a little bit easier. And that's going to be scene 4, which is going to be CC value of 3. And then at the very end of this, I'm going to go back to scene. We'll do wide clean again, which I said was 6, I believe. No. Wide clean. So I need a CC value of 6. That's right. I forgot it for a second. And yeah, wide clean. So there it is. I just double checked that it's going. So now here's just my, well, let me do this. Let me keep adding to this, and then I'll show you the end result, because I think that'll go by faster, and we don't have to listen to this track over and over and over again. So the next thing I want to do right here at this F major 7, probably actually a beat before it, I am going to add in another thing of automation. I'm going to do my delay bypass. And I'm going to, again, color code this. Let's do blue, so I know that it's always something else that I'm doing. I'm trying to keep things very organized here. I have, let me go back over to the XFX. I have my effect bypass mode set to value. So when I have a value that is 64 or 63 and under, it's going to read as off. When I have that 64 or over, it's going to read as on. So the halfway point here. I'm not going to worry so much about 63 or 64, whatever's going on there. I'm just going to do this. Put this on. And I'm just going to drag this up to the max. That way I know for sure. And then I'm going to want this to go off. So let's copy this again. I want to turn this off right here. And now we'll go to it. I'm just going to drag it this time and turn it off. And then I'm also going to turn it back on at the end of my big lead. And we will see why. I'm going to turn it on like right here. And that is going to read on again. Okay. Now, a little work in the XFX, back to wide clean. A little work in the XFX here because I don't have my delay, right? So I need to add that. Let's go ahead and go to delay. I'm just going to do this real fast. Delay 2. And I just want to go with like a very simple digital mono. We're going to tempo sync it. Dotted eighth delay. Mix at around 25, 26 is probably going to be pretty good. Feedback around 20%. We want mute effects in because we're in parallel. kill dry because we're in parallel. I want this to be controlled not by the scenes, just by the effects that I have. If I go back to my clean, and here is on my neck pickup. Yeah, I might go just a little bit more on the mix. Like that. I think that'll be good. And then I'm also going to do this with my delay. I want to automate the mix, and I want to automate the feedback for the end of the solo. So I'm going to do that with external 2, my digital roadie. External 2, my minimum is going to be set at like 30-ish. And max, let's go up to like 90% mix. And here on the feedback, again, external 2, my digital roadie. We're going to do the initial feedback of around 20. And then let's do like 70%. So a lot of this big delay wash that I have going on at the end of this solo. I need to automate that. So let's go to the very last part of my big solo here. And I'm just going to do this in this blue event. I'm just going to drag this out and have it go on here. So on the very beginning of this, we are going to use external 2. I'm going to draw in a couple lines of automation here. And all the way throughout this, 57, yeah, let's go all the way up here. And that, and then I'm going to turn it all like immediately off. So it's this big wash, and then I also want the delay to be bypassed kind of at that point. And I might actually extend this out longer so that we don't prematurely cut off those reverb tails, or those delay tails. We'll increase this a little bit quicker. Ooh, we can do a curve. I'll do that. And then it'll cut off. The delay, I want to have cut off here. And then we go back to the scenes. So this should give us, let's just watch this in real time. So I'm going to hit play and then we'll see. Let me go back and measure. And you can see the automation happening, and it stays on, stays on, stays on, then it goes off. So there's my digital roadie. And then right here at this point, I just went over, but you can see it reverts. It goes back to our initial value. Okay, so let's go ahead and go back to Axe Edit. I'm going to hit play through this, and show you what's happening. Rhythmic delay. And so on and so forth, right? So no switches happening at my feet. All programmed by the Axe effects. And really what happens is it just sounds like, because we've done this all in a very timeline, very specific way, it almost just sounds like it's different guitar tracks happening, almost like you would produce a song, especially at the end with this wash and then going back into it. This is a really, really, really great method. Again, if you're in a position of playing with tracks on a click, and you're doing the same performance night after night, like a traveling stage production, a show. A lot of pop gigs do this sort of thing, since a lot of pop gigs play along with tracks anyway. This is a really, really, really great method. This will wrap up the little mini-series that I've had for getting your presets gig ready with the most intense way possible in this video. I hope you've enjoyed. My name is Matthew Dale. I'm here to help you play better, sound great, and understand more, and I'll see you next time.